You okay?
I literally haven't changed my outfit in like 2 days.
I'm sick of it!
I just can't get it together today. Not okay. All of us have problems.
Hey there, and welcome back to It's Okay, the podcast, Mean Girls Crimes number 2. It's actually, I hate to say it, it's easier to find, and it does sound bad because, no crime is good, but it's easier to find good cases to talk about that are committed by men versus women, although there are some crazy cases committed by women. However, there was none that really just caught my eye that I wanted to discuss on the podcast. They're more trivial and basic, if that makes sense. And it still is terrible to say. There was one case that I saw where a girl committed a crime against her best friend. She was jealous. I guess that friend was dating the boy who used to be her ex. And then it's this whole thing. But I don't know. It still wasn't something I was I want to talk about it. It was more I don't know. It was kind of satanic, that case in a sense. But I did find one that was super crazy. Because there was the other case had body cam footage too, but this one had body cam footage. And it was it's crazy. It's crazy. Very crazy. So we are discussing the case of Anaya Womack and Mariah Clayton. Mariah is the offender and Anaya is the victim of her friend's crime. So this all happened back in 2023. The crime happened on May 24th of 2023. And this one's coming out of Jacksonville, Florida. Now, in our first Mean Girls Crimes, we discussed 2 cases, and one of them was actually out of Florida. It was a woman who killed her husband. They were originally living in North Carolina. I can't remember where each of them were from. I think they were living out of North Carolina or one of the Carolinas, but I think it was North Carolina, and ended up moving to Florida. The wife did, and then ended up killing her husband in Florida. But I thought we would go back to Florida for Mean Girls Crimes 2 and discuss this one because it is crazy. So before we even get into the murder, let's discuss the pretext of everything. So yeah, on May 24th, 2023 in Jacksonville, Florida, there was a car speeding 900 miles per hour on a regular road, not on the highway, not on the freeway, on just a regular road with actual stoplights. The car blew through a stoplight, and a police officer has his dash cam footage on and is sitting at the red light and watches the car blast through the red light, turns on his police lights, red lights, and follows the car. And then, I don't know, the police, they can be smart, when it comes to these things, and they put 2 and 2 together oh, wait, the car is probably rushing to the hospital because the car has its hazards on. So the car is rushing to Memorial Hospital. That's the hospital in Jacksonville, Florida that they're rushing to. And this is around 12 a.m. on May 24th. And like I said, the car had its hazards on and did actually go to the hospital. Now, in the back seat of the car was a woman who was shot in the abdomen, single gunshot. The guy driving the car was Antonio, and in the passenger seat was Mariah Clayton, the offender that I mentioned earlier. Now, Anaya was, like I said, in the back seat, single gunshot wound to the abdomen. They rush her into the hospital. Mariah and Antonio. And tell them, she was shot or whatever, police followed them to the hospital and, pull up behind them and watch that whole thing. And Anaya went into emergency surgery, but did not make it. She did die shortly after going into surgery. Now, the police are trying to figure out, how on earth do you guys have a woman in the backseat of your car shot, right? So police are trying to gather questions and gather answers to, how all of this happened. And Mariah says that they were driving, her and Antonio, and they saw/found her, Anaya, walking on the side of the road, walking weird. And the driver, Antonio, said you could see, red on her shirt. They said that Anaya was saying, help me, help me. And they weren't trying to speed, but they wanted to get her to the hospital. They said they didn't know her and were saying they were telling her, don't die on me. We're going to get you there. Now, police in the body cam shows police were, already pretty skeptical of this because, it's just not making sense. And again, I say police are very good at, detecting things and understanding, because if you didn't go through the whole case of this and understand the rest of what I'm going to tell you, me included, you would be okay, yeah, you were driving, you were being a helpful citizen to society, you saw someone on the side of the road bleeding and you rushed them to the hospital, that's good of you. But police are But police noticed Anaya didn't have shoes, didn't have a phone, didn't have an ID on her, no wallet, nothing. Which, still, if you're on the side of the road, shot and seeking help, then, I guess that kind of makes sense. But still, police, they're something ain't adding up. Now, more police start coming into play, and one of the officers actually knows about the situation, which we'll come back to, but says Mariah goes by Molly. Now, that's a street name, but goes by Molly and was with Anaya during the shooting, not just saw her on the road, and they were doing a TikTok with guns, and the gun went off and hit her in the stomach. Now, this is what this officer is saying as soon as he kind of gets on the scene. Now, the other police officer who followed her and Antonio to the hospital didn't know any of this, but the officer who gets there starts telling this officer that, because he was possibly dispatched out to the actual place where this all took place, and then got the call about the woman who's at the hospital, and they probably ended up putting two and two together like great detectives that the police can be. But yeah, got shot in the stomach, TikTok video, blase fair. Now, I guess Mariah called someone or was already on the phone, but was heard saying it was an accident. It was an accident. I don't know what happened. And I guess that person who she was on the phone with may have spilled the beans either to police or other people. And somehow, yeah, the word got around. The word got around in Jacksonville, Florida. So, of course, there was witnesses, thank God, but there was a get-together at Nova Apartments, and Mariah and Anaya were in the bathroom filming with guns. Anaya was filming, and Mariah had the AR-style rifle. It went off, hitting Anaya in the stomach. Now, all of this is unfolding at the hospital, and the police decided they need to detain Antonio and Mariah so that they can actually get to the bottom of this, even though they kind of already know. But that's how it is with police work. I'm learning, looking at these body cam, these interrogation, the police work, like they kind of already have their speculations or have foreknowledge of everything, or already know. but they just want you to come clean about it. Just makes it easier for them and the prosecutors. But one of the officers approaches Mariah and asks her if she goes by Molly. It is a street name, like I said, and Mariah says she was telling Anaya her name, like, say my name so I know you're awake, kind of trying to like remove herself from her street name, like, yeah, girl, whatever. And police ask if she was also with someone, but the name was redacted, and she goes pale pretty much, because whose ever name he mentioned, the police, had to have been at the house party. Yeah. Now they're detained officially, and Antonio, the driver, what I'm being detained for, says that. And as police are asking Mariah all the questions, Antonio is trying to look not a part of anything, just scrolling on his phone not even looking at police talk to Mariah. Now, police tell her they know that she was at the party. They let Antonio know he was detained because he drove. So now they let Mariah know that they know Gibson is the owner of the house. Now they don't, say the first name of the person, but the last name of the person is Gibson. So something Gibson is the owner of the apartment, and that Mariah basically lives there. Like, she's there all the time, like a couple of days out of the week or whatever. And she's like, I don't know, I don't live there, I just be there. And cops are like, yeah, all the time, whatever. It's basically what I said. It's crazy how she tried to lie to police already, and like they knew her life better than she knew her life. But now police know the owner of the apartment was in Orlando, Florida, while Mariah and Anaya were left there. So pretty much, the person who owns the apartment, Gibson, is in Orlando, Florida, and the two girls, Anaya and Mariah, are left at the house watching it or whatever they're doing, throwing parties and doing all type of wild stuff. Now, police bring up the phone call about Mariah in the background saying it was an accident. It was an accident. I don't know what happened. And Mariah was like, she never got the chance to talk to her, probably Gibson, because Mariah, she really is like making the entire interrogation, the entire questioning, like so confusing. She was not straight up about anything. She was like totally lying the entire time, and like police really just already knew everything. And it's like, I don't know, she just couldn't be honest, which I mean, I guess I kind of understand. Like, you did something on accident and you're just trying to remove yourself from it. You've never been through something like that. Like, you don't know what to do. And I guess I kind of get it, but at the same time, it's like, girl, it was an accident. Like, I really genuinely don't believe that she like shot her friend on purpose. But at the same time, it's like, you made and did an accident, so you need to own up to it. But she did not want to own up to that at all. And the police are trying to give Mariah the chance to tell the truth, and like, if it was an accident, it was an accident, but just tell the truth. Of course, she doesn't want to tell them the truth, so it's like pulling teeth for, that information. Officers ask why she lied about knowing Anaya and why she said she found her walking. Mariah gonna say something. Well, I mean, she was walking. like literally verbatim. That's exactly what she said. She's already in a police car as they're questioning her, and she gonna say, well, I mean, she was walking. Like, girl, you really, come on now. You could tell the police were like irritated with her at this point. Like, ma'am, really? But pretty much the officers are wanting to know how she and Anaya, how she, shot Anaya. Like, yeah, we know it was an accident, but like, how exactly did it happen? And Mariah's like, I don't know. The gun just went off, pretty much. The officer asks, was the gun in her hand? She says no. And the officers ask, where was it? And she's like, I don't know. I just seen her drop. There was a loud sound. Other people were there that she didn't know. And when asked, she didn't know who had a gun. Officers start to realize they aren't getting anywhere with Mariah. So now they question Antonio. He originally had the same story at first too, that, they found Anaya walking on the side of the road and they took her to the hospital or whatever, pretty much. But they're trying to give him a real chance. But police, before they ask him anything, tell him what they know first to give him a real chance. Now, he and Mariah too said he was never in the apartment. Antonio says he had just left the bank and Gates gas station, I think. Sometimes it's hard to make out what people are saying on body cam. You can understand the police officers perfectly because, or not always perfectly, but you can understand them way better because, of course, the body cam footage is attached to their chest, is right by their mouth. You can hear them. But when it comes to other people speaking, it can be a little muddled. You can't really understand them a lot of the times. But he did that and said that he just pulled up to smoke weed and he was there to see Sean, I guess a friend of his or whoever. He was going to go in, but they came out screaming and crying, and someone take me to the hospital, pretty much is what he says Mariah is saying, and that he didn't know either of them. Now, Mariah is taken to the police station and is interviewed by detectives, not the police. And she asks, is she dead? And they tell her yes. She is emotional but collected about herself after hearing that information. I would say still a liar though. Now she's telling them everything and even doing like reenactments, saying a guy was with them in the bathroom, was showing Mariah how to turn the safety on and off, and that the gun just went off. Even with her reenactment, like she's still kind of vague about everything in a sense. They even bring out a dummy gun for her to show them everything, which was a genius move on their part for sure. Now they decide to speak to the guy Mariah says was in the bathroom with them, showing her how to take the safety on and off and saying he was the one, pretty much who was holding the gun, and she was just standing in front of him watching him teach her how to turn the safety on and off, blase-faire. Now they show him footage of how Mariah says he was holding the gun, like how they were in the room, what was going on in the bathroom and all that stuff, and like where she was standing. He immediately is like, that's a lie. That's a lie. On my mama's soul. And I had never heard of someone say that, like, on my soul. I was like, oh my gosh, you had to, on your mom's soul? On my soul? On my spirit? Like, dang, that's heavy. And, he just starts saying that that's not even my girl. The detectives were hilarious and fine, might I add. But like, yeah, he was like, that's not even my girl. And the detective was like, oh, okay, I'm with you. I was like, really? Okay, anyway. And I didn't mention, or really, I just forgot really to say that, to like say the ethnicities of everyone. But Mariah, Anaya, Antonio, and the guy who was in the bathroom, they are Black Americans. The detectives one was black and one was white, and they were both very, very fine. But the detectives, mentioned running his DNA against a dress and if it would match, and he was pretty much like, run it. So after all that, they charged Mariah, but not even with the murder of Anaya. She had warrants out for her arrest for violation of probation, for vandalism of a vehicle or with a vehicle. I'm like, vandalism with a vehicle. She was running stuff down. I don't know. And failure to appear for petty theft. Now, of course, this is really just to build a good case, to keep her there so that they can question her more and stuff like that. And she asks, can she make a phone call? She needs to call her mama. And the police are like, yeah, you're going to be able to do that. Now, she mentions her phone, and the police or the detectives tell her, yeah, it's being downloaded. And he said it so nonchalantly too, like he knew what he was doing. Now, a week later, they bring her back in for an interview. The black detective went straight in. We don't want to hear none of that craziness or bullshit about, I already told you before. We want the truth about what happened in the bathroom. And he mentioned something like, remember when we were in the last interrogation room and I told you that it's getting effed up with y'all playing with guns on TikTok, and he's like, the family needs answers. And she got, very emotional, saying she didn't pull the trigger and that she feels like she's being singled out when, everyone else was there, and how she was the only one who helped that girl. She was in a back seat with her. She helped her and stuff like that. And how Jamaican was the one who pulled the trigger. Now, Jamaican is the guy who was in the bathroom with her. That's like his street name, not his ethnicity. He definitely does not sound Jamaican, but that's his nickname, Jamaican. And how he was holding the gun and how he pulled the trigger, blah, blah, blah. Now, because she's only in there for the warrants, she does her bail or her jail time or whatever and gets that worked out. She is released from jail. Now, she was out for about 4 months, and investigators did watch her. They watched her social media, and she was still doing the same thing, playing and holding with guns on video. And I'm like, really, girl? But she's very young. I think she was 19. Yeah, she was 19 during this time, like the 19 at the time of Anaya being shot in the stomach by her. And when you're young and dumb, like early 20s, like you see the rap videos, like they've got guns, like it looks cool. It looks really cool, but it's not cool. It's very dumb. I even am guilty of record myself with some guns. I've never posted it anywhere. The footage is not out there. No, boo. I was not that dumb, but yeah, I totally did it because it looks cool. You're like listening to trap music. You've got a gun. You're like, yes, I'm in a music video and it's free. Like I'm not getting paid anyway, but still, it was just, very dumb on her part. But after the 4 months, they bring her back in for questioning, and they ask her about the stuff that she's posting, like what's her fascination with guns, and why is she still posting stuff with guns, and why does she hang around people who have guns and stuff like that in the manner that they do, right? They're not concealed to carry. Oh, it's on my hip, I'm good. Like, no, they're doing trap videos. So like, yeah, what's going on with that? And she is pretty much like, I don't be around people who have guns. They come around me. If someone has a gun that has nothing to do with me, I don't just ask people to pull up who have guns. Pretty much, like they just have guns. People who are around her have guns. But I did not see any of the footage of her TikTok or anything like that. I might do a little more investigation. Maybe in like Mean Girls Crimes number 3, we can update you on this. But yeah, I am like, for her to say that, it just doesn't make sense, because it's like you're literally on video holding guns. So the detectives and the judge claim. But she decides that she doesn't want to answer any more questions, and right then and there, she's charged with manslaughter. Manslaughter is the unlawful killing of a human being without malice aforethought, premeditation, or intense cruel intent. it is generally classified as either voluntary, heat of passion, intentional but provoked, or involuntary, reckless, negligent, or unintentional. So that is the definition of manslaughter. So yeah, you have the involuntary where it's reckless and unintentional, but someone does end up dying. And this is what happened in her case. And then you have voluntary manslaughter where it's just the emotion is so high, you kill them. And that is what a lot of domestic abusers are charged with. Go back and listen to the domestic violence episode. If you already haven't, definitely an eye-opening, enlightening episode. But yeah, she was charged, booked in, baby. And on March 8th of 2024, she pled guilty and was sentenced for Anaya's death. The judge went in on her, very politely too, might I add. The judge, a Caucasian woman, London Kite was this judge's name, out of Florida, really honed in on how, like, even after you shot your friend playing thugging on TikTok, you still, during that 4-month span of her being out, she still posted videos of herself with guns in that manner. And how social media is eroding our country. And that's a whole nother episode. I've actually done an episode on social media. I think it's entitled Social Media. It is on Spotify only. On Spotify only. But and she says that Miss Clayton is young and obviously extremely immature. But she was sentenced to 5 years in prison, then 5 years probation. And if she gets in trouble at all during those 5 years, she could face maximum sentencing. And that's coming straight out of Florida. And I honestly, whenever I got to, the conclusion of this, her sentencing, I am kind of like, okay, 5 years is a little more lenient than we would think. I think 5 years is pretty good. She's 19 years old, so she'll be out at the age of 25, 26. She'll still be very, very young. But I think she already had 104 days of sentence added on. So she already spent that time in jail. So they, reduced that from her sentencing. So yeah, she will get out in her mid-20s. And hopefully she has learned her lesson, of course, since then. But I saw a case recently. Now, this one's coming out of Texas. And it's about a dad who accidentally shot his daughter. And it was like, the headline says that it was over Trump or whatever. But everything's so politicized, they have to get these stories in there. On the day of the shooting, the dad, I guess, is saying that they didn't have any discussions about Trump. The article makes it seem like, or whatever TikTok video or reel or news outlet, so false, such falsies, are alluding to that day they were arguing about Trump and he just shot her. That's not what happened, the dad says. Now, the dad is a self-professed alcoholic and admit that he had 3 glasses of wine. I heard Tim Pool say 3 glasses of wine for an alcoholic. I mean, really, that did nothing. That does nothing for them, and I can definitely attest to that. 3 glasses of wine for alcoholic, no, not gonna do anything. But he was still under the influence. So he says this, and how she wasn't okay with him having a gun. They're originally, I think, from Europe, and the dad moved over here and the daughter still lives in Europe but was visiting with her boyfriend in Texas visiting her dad. And he, became a gun owner, and she wasn't really okay with it. She wasn't a supporter of Trump. He was, but yeah, like she wasn't a supporter of him owning a gun either. And that is messed up to be like, I don't agree with you having this, and then I end up dying at the hands of it. Like, whoa. But yeah, he says he had 3 glasses of wine. I guess they had a disagreement about the gun that day. The argument that day was about the gun. It wasn't even about Trump, but they had to throw Trump in there. Previously, they had disagreements about Trump. That day, I don't think that they had any discussions. According to the dad, I assume, from what I gather, there's always going to be more coming out as the weeks go on. But he then showed her like the gun or something after they got done like having this heated discussion. He like brought her down to his room. They were upstairs. He brought him down to the room and he was showing her something, and the gun went off and killed her, which is absolutely wild. But I bring that up because he was not charged at all. A jury decided not to indict him or to convict him or to even bring the trial forward, which I thought was very, very crazy. Now, with these situations, I just bring them up because we're in such this polarizing society. You've got a white man who is not indicted and killed his daughter and gets off scot-free, but then you have Mariah. Now, watching all of her body cam footage and watching like the trial, what the judge said, how the detectives interviewed her, what she was saying and whatever other people were saying, like, okay, yes, she was very much young and dumb and she needed to just be steered in the right path. Like, no, you don't need to be posting videos of thugs on TikTok. Maybe they could have, I don't know, put her in like a big sister program or something, like, I don't know. But at the same time, like, okay, 5 years, you're still gonna get out and you'll be on probation, don't F up and stuff like that. But it was very, very polarizing, to say the least, to learn about those two. And like I said, there's still gonna be more coming out about the dad and the girl in Texas who had a heated discussion over guns and decided to part ways and then got together and killed her, which is like wild. But on the back end of this episode, we have to discuss Christa Pike. I actually mentioned her in one of either the F-Boy Crimes or Mean Girls Crimes first episode, or the second or first episode of F-Boy Crimes, because I used her actually as a statistic. She was one of the first women to ever be sentenced to death. And I can't remember where the case is out of, but it recently came back across my feed because she's still sentenced to death, and she's actually supposed to be sentenced to death, and it's supposed to be done this year of 2026. Now, I had never really heard of Christa Pike. I just saw her as a statistic, the first woman to ever be sentenced to death back in like the 70s, or not the first. I can't remember if she was the first or if she was the youngest, but she was sentenced to death at 18 years old. And I didn't even know like her whole case, her situation, but oh my gosh, we definitely have to do a whole separate episode about this woman. It's wild what she did. And it's still so crazy to fall asleep to murder, but I was listening to her case and fell asleep. But she, I guess, was in a jealous rage. She had a boyfriend and she was in Job Corps with a group of friends, and she had a boyfriend there, and one of the friend girls that she had, she never really liked. They weren't really friends, I guess you could say, in the first place. But this friend, or this girl, she did not like and thought the girl was flirting with her boyfriend. Absolutely crazy. This girl had a troubled past and was very much a troubled person. and got 2 other people wrapped up in her crimes and wanted them to commit a crime with her by killing this girl. They did go through with it, killed someone, and the other 2 people, I can't remember, I'm pretty sure they got shorter deals than Christina, because Christina was the mastermind behind the entire thing. And she is still sentenced to death. And after all the repeals, and that's what I saw yesterday that made me want to bring this up, after all the repeals that she'd done, all the fighting in court that she did to not be sentenced to death, she is still sentenced to death and is supposed to be killed by the state in 2026, this year. And I think it was out of Texas. To be sentenced to death at 18, and that was back in like before the 90s. So it's like, it's crazy how you could be sentenced to death and like you actually don't, like the state doesn't go through with it because of court appeals and all that stuff until like 3 decades later. It's literally like 3 decades later that this woman, 4 decades probably, that she's actually going to be sentenced to death, which I guess probably is a good thing. Like, you're not just sentenced to death and then you die. When you have those cases of people who did not commit the crime, which is very few, they make you think it happens all the time. And it's like, no, actually it doesn't. It's very rare that someone actually is sentenced for cases that they didn't commit. Now back like before like 2000, it may have been way more common, but with forensic evidence and digital footprints, that's not the case anymore. Like at all. Unless someone like physically gets your DNA and like takes your phone and does all this stuff on your phone that you're unaware of, and like takes strands of your hair and your fingerprints and like sets them at the crime. It's the only other way that you would be convicted of a crime you actually didn't commit. But yeah, I thought that was crazy. We definitely are going to have to dive into that case, because that is a true mean girl. Definitely a true mean girl. Mariah isn't necessarily that mean of a mean girl. The only reason it makes her a mean girl is because she was stunting on TikTok, accidentally shot her friend, and then lied about it to police. And she should have just came clean, because if you would have been like, it was an accident, and like you actually rushed the girl to the hospital, you cared, it was an accident, like that's different. She probably would have, maybe gotten some time for that. But at least she, came clean and like told the truth about it. But I get why as well she would want to lie about that, because it's like you're thinking, you're in the state of Florida, so Florida's a little rough. So yeah, kind of understand that, but still, just stay sober, stay vigilant. Remember, Christ is king, guys. Christ is king of kings. Anyway, it's okay.
All of us have problems.